Means we're live, a casual take with your boy Stephen Pepper here to casually talk sports. So I had to come on here and talk about our guy Russell Wilson. So breaking news yesterday: Russ was officially released by the Denver Broncos. He will be officially released before the start of the new year of the NFL season, which is March 13th. Well, I know I started by saying breaking news, but I think to everyone, this isn't shocking at all. It felt like as the months progressed, as the Russell Wilson era in Denver progressed, it was going to lead to this moment. It just was, especially at the tail end of the season with the contract stuff, with the Sean Payton criticisms, with the benching, the injury clause. We kind of knew this was coming. And then in December, they had the unofficial report and the rumors about him eventually being released by the team. He just wasn't Sean Payton's quarterback. So everyone kind of saw this coming, and we've been saying for months that this was or could be one of the worst trades in NFL history. Some people are even going as far as saying sports history. And, I'm going to add on to that. I don't really like adding on, piling on and stuff like that, but I'm going to. Russ in Denver might have been the worst quarterback tenure of my lifetime with all things considered. Fit, talent, trade assets, salary, and expectations. The Broncos traded 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a 5th, and 3 players for Russ, and then extended him 5 years with hundreds of millions of dollars guaranteed when he had 2 years left on his previous deal in Seattle. And the idea was for him to lead a competitive playoff team for the next half decade. But 2 years later, the Broncos are now left with 2 missed draft classes, $85 million in dead cap, and a continued 8-year playoff drought in a division with Mahomes and Herbert. And we can say what you want about Denver. We can thank that to a quarterback in Russell Wilson for winning 37% of his games, throwing for 220 yards per game, a 2.2 touchdown interception ratio, and a 91 passer rating. The Broncos thought when they traded for Russ, they were getting a 9-time Pro Bowler who had consistently led the Seattle team to the playoffs. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, Seattle Seahawks of all time. But instead, Denver got a washed-up star and a cooked future. That is an absolute disaster and a stain on Russell Wilson's legacy. The Broncos, to me, are just lucky that the salary cap went up at the right time. Just so convenient for them. It went up tens of millions of dollars thanks to the unexpected NFL revenue that they got. They're going to have to pay Russell Wilson next season to not play for them. I think about $36 to $39 million in cash for the next 2 seasons. And their future's just cooked. They're in a division with Harbaugh, Herbert, Mahomes, Reed. The Raiders are just the Raiders. But those are some 2 great competition that they're going to play twice a year each. And they've foregone 2 first-round picks from the previous 2 drafts, 2 second-round picks from the previous 2 drafts. The 2 most valuable picks in an NFL draft, first and second, they didn't have in the last 2 years because they wanted Russell Wilson. And they won 37% of their games with him. To even this just rubs it in the face of George Patton and the Waltons who own Walmart, they run the Broncos, that the team that they traded with to get Russell Wilson made the postseason with Russ's replacement that same season. They didn't make it last year, but they were competitive, while Denver wasn't even close these last 2 years. Now, I get it. Was Russell Wilson better under Sean Payton? He didn't have Sean Payton this first season. That is true, but only to an extent, because I'm going to be honest, I don't give a damn what the stats say. Russell Wilson had the same touchdown passes as MVP Lamar Jackson. He had the same rating as Mahomes. I don't give a damn. Russ was mid last season. He was bad his first year. In comes Sean Payton, who tried his hardest with Russell Wilson. He was absolutely mid. Russ was a check down merchant. There was no intermediate, no 10 to 20 yard passes, no across the middle of the field, middle routes, and he clearly wasn't the same athlete. So, when I say that Russ, his time in Denver was not just the worst trade ever, but with all they consider, the expectations, the salary, the fit, the ability, coping Broncos fans and angry Browns fans will tell you that it's actually Deshaun Watson who's on that trajectory to be the worst quarterback tenure of my lifetime, in which I can see an argument for Deshaun Watson, and we'll see how that ends up. Well, at least Watson is still on the team. I don't like defending Deshaun Watson because he's a weird guy. Well, at least Deshaun Watson is still employed by the team that traded for him. I get he has the big contract. He has been Houston watching, but he also has an injury excuse. He only played 16 games so far in 2 seasons with the Browns. Well, that's because he's either been injured or suspended. And he won a couple games. I think he has a better record in Cleveland than Denver with Russell Wilson. So I'm going to say it's Russell Wilson. Now, when I talked about in December where the market for Russell Wilson, when the unofficial report said he was going to get released, came out, I said I didn't know where he was going to go from here. And I still stand by that. Now, would I be surprised if he ends up on another team? No. I mean, given his contract that's going to be entirely financed by the Denver Broncos, I can see him being a minimum guy in Pittsburgh who needs to move off Kenny Pickett, maybe in Atlanta or maybe a Raider. I wouldn't disagree with that signing. But 90% of the league doesn't need a quarterback, or they will just draft a young guy. And for a lot of those teams, would you really want Russell Wilson? I think Russell Wilson doesn't get along with his teammates. I don't hear a lot of good stuff about Russ from the Legion of Boom or the guys in Denver or Sean Payton. Like, he's kind of a weird guy, and he's also a celebrity wife, walks red carpets, makes a lot of money. Nickelodeon shows. Like, Russell Wilson's a bit of celebrity. He's a huge Hall of Fame name. And I don't know where he's going to go after this, but clearly that this trade, a stain on Russell Wilson's, which projected at the 2021 season, by the end of that, to be a Hall of Fame legacy, this will be on his resume saying, worst quarterback tenure of my lifetime, with all things considered. How was the fit? Clearly not good. How was his talent? Clearly regressing. The trade assets was a disaster. The salary cap, the fact that he got released before that extension even hit, and the expectations that this team, the Denver Broncos team, have failed to reach the playoffs since Peyton Manning retired in 2016, failed to find his replacement since 2016. Russ was expected to finally be the team's savior, to come in, get this team back on track in the post-Peyton Manning area, and he absolutely fell on his face because Denver thought they were going to get a Pro Bowl quarterback, and they got a wash star instead, and now they're left with a Cook future, thanks to Russell Wilson. Shout out to everyone who tuned in today for this quick little Russell Wilson rant. Make sure you follow all my social media, Some Casual Takes, to stay updated, all things related to the show. And until next rant, let's go Lakers, win against the Thunder yesterday. Let's go.